Hello, everyone, and welcome to another confirmation lesson. And this time we're going to tackle the chapter on holy orders, a beautiful sacrament of service in the Catholic Church. Holy orders is what makes a man ordained into the Catholic Church for service. And to start, we're going to see a quick little video about the sacrament of holy orders.
They said it'll be at least an hour wait.
Not if I can help it.
You can't pretend to be a priest.
Oh, watch me. Come on, how hard could it be? Bad idea. They started confessing.
Oh, to what?
Welcome to Catholic Central. I'm Kai.
And I'm Libby,
Today, we'll be talking about holy orders.
as in sacrament of, not my Etsy site with custom-made holy water fonts.
Holy orders is the sacrament through which the mission entrusted by Christ to his apostles continues to be exercised in the church until the end of time.
Put another way, it's what makes priests, bishops, and deacons into, well, priests, bishops, and deacons.
So, where does this sacrament come from? Why do all the rules for it matter? Shouldn't we be able to skip the middleman and go straight to God?
Catholics admit that doing things this way can make things, shall we say, inconvenient.
The whole wedding is held up because the priest is late.
But it also maintains this sacrament as truly special and unique.
To understand it, though, we need to look at how anyone can become a priest.
Uh,
Through baptism. All Christians are baptized as priest, prophet, and king.
This gives each Christian a special mission to make sacrifices and serve others, helping everyone they meet to better know and love God,
This forms the foundation for the ordained priesthood.
which takes that mission and combines it with examples from the Old Testament and Jesus himself.
The Israelites had a priestly class, starting with Moses and his brother Aaron. Aaron was designated high priest of what was later known as the Levitical priesthood, after the tribe of Levi.
The priests in those days maintained the sacred space of the temple and offered sacrifice on high holy days.
Then when Jesus came along, he started forgiving sinners, healing the sick, and exorcising demons.
And Catholics believe that he also established the Eucharist at the Last Supper.
And accepted baptism from John the Baptist, even though, let's be honest, he didn't really need to.
By getting baptized himself, Catholics believe that Jesus showed us that we do need someone and something else to go to God.
That collective someone are priests, and that something are the sacraments, which are reflections of what Jesus did in his ministry. Jesus confirms this by handing on these ministries to his apostles.
After Jesus' ascension, the Holy Spirit descended on the apostles, and they spread throughout the known world to preach and serve.
But that's a big job for just 12 guys. So they worked with the local churches to identify more leaders.
They trained and anointed people for formal roles in the church.
Within the first 2 centuries, these came to be bishops, in Greek episkopos.
These were leaders of regional and local churches. They enlivened and guided the activity of a place, but also united that local place with the universal church.
The church around the world that came to be based in Rome.
Priests, called presbyters, were people who dedicated their whole life to assist the local bishop, officiate at sacraments and religious services, and coordinate the service of all the people, especially the poor and needy.
These also came to be known as priests because of the sacrificial nature of presiding at the Eucharist, and for their connection to Jesus, the high priest.
And that's why Catholics even today say that priests are in persona Christi. Catholics believe that when the priest pronounces the words of a sacrament, he is acting in the person of Christ.
And bishops act in the person of Christ during their weekly multiplication of loaves and fishes.
We wish. Actually, bishops act as Christ in their role as leaders of the church.
Hi. Yeah, are you ever going to mention deacons? Because it's always priests this, bishops that. Deacons get no respect.
Sorry, deacon. Deacons were chosen in the book of Acts to help with the distribution of food so that the apostles could focus on prayer and preaching.
Nowadays, the sacrament of holy orders happens through a process called ordination. And Catholics believe that, like baptism and confirmation, ordination changes a person in the very core of who they are.
Ordination is a permanent change, creating what is sometimes called an indelible or unerasable mark on the soul.
Ordination happens through the laying on of hands, which is a throwback to the apostles.
In the Catholic Church, there are 3 things you can be ordained: deacon,
Thank you.
Priest and bishop.
The difference between them are what they do.
Deacons preach, witness marriages, and perform baptisms.
But they can't consecrate the Eucharist, hear confessions, confirm the faithful, or anoint the sick.
Some men are permanent deacons, men who heard the call to dedicate themselves in a unique way to God while still living in the world, often having an outside job and a family.
But men also pass through the diaconate on the way to the priesthood.
Priests do all the sacraments, but can't ordain other priests or deacons. That's for bishops to handle. Handle? Laying out of hands? Get it?
Catholics take ordination seriously. To get to the point of getting ordained a priest, men go through 6 to 9 years of discernment, prayer, extensive applications,
Background checks, conversations with directors of vocation, psychological testing.
studies in philosophy and theology in seminary, and supervised ministry.
Once ordained, daily life as a priest varies, depending on several things. One is whether a priest is ordained into the diocesan priesthood or a religious order.
Diocesan priests commit themselves to a specific geographical area, and most of them focus on serving those in the parish his bishop assigns to him.
On the other hand, priests in religious orders serve all over the map. They're ordained for a particular mission, spirituality, and common life.
So you might find priests doing everything from teaching to serving the poor or working in the media.
No matter if it's diocesan or religious priesthood, though, you have to start with aptitude for service, a strong life of prayer, intellectual ability, social and psychological maturity, physical ability, and, most importantly, a call from God.
A call which is also confirmed by the community, including a candidate's superiors and bishop.
Right, it's like marriage. You can't just show up at Ryan Gosling's house in a wedding gown and expect a ceremony to happen.
Not that I ever tried that.
No, certainly not. And just like a wedding doesn't automatically make you the perfect spouse, ordination doesn't make someone perfect.
But it does allow deacons, priests, and bishops to give their lives in service to the church and accompany the faithful in the greatest joys and sorrows of life.
Since all Christians are proclaimed priest, prophet, and king at baptism, the sacrament of holy orders gives us all an example of how to be Christ to one another, speak the truth, and lead others to faith.
From all of us here at Catholic Central, thanks for watching. I'm Libby.
And I'm Kai. Be sure to check out our website, CatholicCentral.com, for more on holy orders.
And be sure to check out our other episodes on the sacraments and hit subscribe on YouTube.
And be sure to check out Libby's Etsy site with holy water fonts.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
They're great.
So in that very wonderful video, you got a lot of information, and you learned that there are 3 levels of the sacrament of holy orders. And let's start at the beginning. Let's start at how a man or a woman decides that they may want to devote their lives to the church. For a woman, about the best way that one can devote her life to the entirety of the church would be to become a religious sister and join a religious order. Religious sisters are not ordained. They don't have the sacrament of holy orders, but the church could never function without them. They are an important and an essential ministry in our church. I was educated in grades kindergarten through 8th grade by religious sisters, and I thank them every night in prayer for the wonderful example and the wonderful teaching and the wonderful example of their lives that they provided me with as I journeyed on my faith journey towards to who I am today, a deacon. So if a woman wants to devote her life to the church, she probably goes to a religious order and becomes a nun or a sister. There are hundreds of religious orders, and the way to determine which religious order a person goes into, each religious order usually has a different ministry. Some deal in education, some deal in hospitals and taking care of the sick. Some, like Mother Teresa of Calcutta's order, the Missionaries of Charity, deal exclusively with serving the poorest of the poor. So these are different ways that a woman could give her entire life to the church, join a religious order, and become a religious sister or a nun. What about for a man? Where does the call from God begin? Well, it obviously begins for most men that become ordained later in life at a much younger age. Personally, I always have been religious I always have enjoyed attending church. I always was fascinated by the sacraments and what was going on in church. And I was an altar server and I did all that. And I myself decided to explore the place where a priest would train to become a priest called the seminary. I want to let you know that we are very blessed and privileged at Holy Apostles that we actually have a seminarian, a young man who just this past September decided to think about a vocation, a religious vocation to the priesthood. And many of you know him. His name is Michael Stabile, and I've asked Michael if he would just give us a brief rundown on what was his decision like? How did he decide that he might want to serve God and his church in being a priest? So this is Mike Stabile's story.
Hi everyone, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Stabile. I'm the parish seminarian at Holy Apostles, and I'm currently studying for our own diocese, the Diocese of Providence, at Our Lady of Providence Seminary on Mount Pleasant Avenue. And I'm here to talk to you a little bit today about my vocation story. I know Deacon Greg is currently teaching you guys about the Sacrament of Holy Orders and what that entails. And so I'm sure he's gotten into the vocations of the church, right? We have married life, single life, consecrated life, and the priesthood. So being a seminarian myself, I'm currently discerning a possible vocation to the priesthood. And so I wanted to take some time today and tell you a little bit about how I got to where I am today and kind of what the future is going to look like. So when I was in high school, I was heavily involved in Holy Apostles youth ministry, as I'm sure some of you guys are now or will be as you enter your high school years and progress through high school. But what that basically means is I helped out with a lot of things, but in addition to helping out, I took part in the Passion Play. I took part in Living Stations of the Cross. I played music at masses and adoration and other liturgical services, and I was a member of the missionary group for 2019, and I'm a chaperone of the missionary group of 2020. And so when you get involved in the parish community, you're exposed to a lot of different things that the faith offers, right? So you have the service component, you have the evangelization component, sharing the faith with other people. You have the service component, again, not in the same way where you have the mission group where you're going overseas, but also helping out at the local soup kitchen. So being able to serve others in conjunction with growing in your understanding for the faith and sharing that understanding with others is a perfect way to practice Catholicism, right? Is a perfect way to practice our faith. And so in practicing our faith through youth ministry at Holy Apostles and growing in a deeper understanding of it, I decided that there was maybe a slight potential chance that God might be calling me to the priesthood. And when I received a letter from my religion teacher at LaSalle Academy, which was an invitation to attend a seminary priesthood discernment retreat, I, with much hesitance, accepted the invitation and went on the retreat and discovered a whole new sense of what it meant to discern priesthood, and I really enjoyed it. And so from there, I got myself a spiritual director. A spiritual director is someone who kind of guides you through your spiritual life, guides you through prayer, who you go to confession to, who helps you grow in your understanding of the faith, right? And so it's important that we're able to understand the faith so that we can grow deeper and deeper. If we go back to the Baltimore Catechism, right, it tells us that our goal in life is to know, love, and serve God so that we may be with him in the next life. And so in getting to know God, right, I was able to love him more fully. I was able to develop a more intense prayer life with God. And the prayer life is crucial. Okay, so you can't really discern any vocation, whether that be marriage, whether that be priesthood or consecrated life, without knowing God, right? So God has a vocation for all of us. A vocation is a plan for our life, and it's in getting to know God and dialoguing with God himself that he's able to reveal that plan to us. And so just as in the same way you wouldn't really know what's going on in the life of your best friend if you didn't communicate with them, you can't really understand God's divine will for your own life if you're not communicating with him on a regular basis. A regular basis being most certainly more often than once a week at Sunday Mass, but that Sunday Mass being the absolute bare minimum requirement. It's important, it's crucial that we get to Sunday Mass each week. And so that's my vocation story. I'm currently here studying philosophy at Providence College while undergoing priesthood formation at Our Lady of Providence Seminary. It's been an absolute great journey. So many helpful people along the way. Granted, I have a long way to go. If you don't have a degree, it's an 8-year journey. If you do have a degree, it's a 6-year journey. So I'm studying philosophy here and now, and after I graduate from Providence College, I'll be assigned to major seminary where I will study theology in further preparation for the priesthood. And so it's a wonderful vocation from where I am now, the viewpoint from as a seminarian. It shows that the priesthood is a very rewarding, very fulfilling vocation. And so any vocation that God calls us to is ultimately for the purpose of being happy and being granted salvation, right? So that we can be with him in the next life. And that is our ultimate goal. So God leads us to the vocation that he thinks will help us love others and love him more fully in order that we might be with him in the next life. And so as you continue on in your confirmation classes and in your own spiritual life, while it's not only important that you stay extremely close to the Lord in prayer, it's also important that you really get to know the Lord so that he can reveal his plan for your own life to you, and through the sacraments, through his own grace, and through the teachings of the church. And so at this time, I'd ask you that you pray especially for me and for my brother seminarians as we continue our formation, and know that I will be praying for you as you prepare for your confirmation at Holy Apostles, a very, very important and fruitful sacrament in the life of the Catholic Church.
What a wonderful, wonderful thing that was. Wonderful message from our parish seminarian, Michael Stabile. So, like Michael, when I was young, I discerned and I attended Our Lady of Providence Seminary on Mount Pleasant Avenue in Providence, just like he is there now. And I was there for my junior and senior year of college. And then I started to have doubts about whether or not I wanted to be a priest. I had always dreamt of having a wife and children, and because a diocesan and religious order priest take vows of celibacy, I did not know if that's where God was calling me or if that's where my vocation was. So I took a year off and taught religion, and then I decided to explore the major seminary that Mike spoke of, and I went to Rome, to the North American College in Rome, Italy, to study theology in the major seminary. I did not finish there, and eventually when I returned home from Rome, I met the woman who I've now called my wife for 24 years a few months later, but I knew that I could still serve the church as a permanent deacon. So if a person wants to become a priest, he goes to college, he goes to major seminary, and it is a 6 to 8 year process. The ultimate goal for anybody who wants to be ordained is the day of ordination. And I'm lucky enough that I actually have a DVD of the moment that I was ordained, and whether it is a deacon or a priest being ordained, it's through the laying on of hands that the sacrament of holy orders takes place. And I want to show you very quickly the moment that I was actually ordained. So this is February 2nd of the year 2013, and this was the moment that I became Deacon Greg Albanese. So almost 8 years ago, at that moment, as the video told you, I changed in the core of my being. And I ceased being Mr. Greg Albanese, and I became Deacon Greg Albanese. And as you heard from the video, deacons take care of service, a lot of the service-oriented tasks that need to be done both inside of church and outside of church. So as deacons, you've seen me read the gospel. You've seen me preach homilies. I hope they're decent. Hopefully, you know that I also do baptisms. So I prepare families and do the actual moment of baptism. I used to go to Cramar Nursing Home before COVID to bring communion to the sick. I've helped people I've been in the room where a person has just died, and I've celebrated prayers with the family. I've been in the neonatal intensive care unit of Women and Infants Hospital, praying on an incubator for a premature baby that was fighting for his life. So I do all the wonderful graces and things that God has called me to do in helping people grow closer to Christ and participate in his church. I cannot confess sins, so I cannot celebrate the sacrament of reconciliation and forgive sins. So I cannot be a person's confessor. And I also cannot consecrate. So I cannot take ordinary bread and wine and turn it into the body and blood of Christ. Those are things exclusively reserved for priesthood. So a permanent deacon does all these wonderful ministries, but cannot forgive sins and cannot consecrate the Eucharist. Priesthood is obviously the fullness of being able to minister the sacraments to the faithful. And our own beloved Monsignor Thiru was ordained in 1977. So that means for the better part of almost 45 years now, he's been ministering to God's people and has celebrated many different priestly assignments. And we're so fortunate that he landed here at Holy Apostles to be our shepherd and minister to us. Our beloved Monsignor Kenny just celebrated his 25th anniversary of priesthood in the year 2020. So he's been ministering to God's people in so many different ways as well. So Monsignor Kenny and Monsignor Thiru are examples of diocesan priests. They're always in the state of Rhode Island, in the Diocese of Providence, and they report directly to the bishop of the Diocese of Providence. Religious order priests, such as Dominicans, Franciscans, Carmelites, Jesuits, they are of a religious order, and they take an additional vow of poverty to not own anything in their lives, and they also report to their superior, and they can actually be sent anywhere in the world where that religious order operates to minister to God's people. So that's a big difference between diocesan priesthood and religious order priesthood. Diocesan priests take two vows, and that is the vow of obedience to their bishop and the vow of celibacy or not to get married. And religious order priests take the third vow of poverty, and they also make their vow of obedience to the religious order, and they can be sent anywhere in the world. So we need to pray for our priests. We need to pray for our bishops. We need to pray for our deacons who are trying in this crazy world and at this crazy time to bring people closer to Christ and minister to God's people. So holy orders is an honor for a man to receive. It's a privilege, but it's also a big responsibility that that man is undertaking for the rest of his life. So I hope this presentation has been helpful for you to realize, first of all, that they don't just throw anybody up there in the sanctuary to preach to you and administer the sacraments to you. The priesthood and the diaconate are long processes of much study and much prayer, and to be a bishop even more so. And we really, really need to applaud these people who have stepped up to minister to us and help us be closer to God. I hope you also know that God might be calling you to spend the rest of your life. And if God seems to be calling you, you can always speak to either Monsignor Thiru, Monsignor Kenny, myself, or any other parish staff member, and we can definitely point you in the right direction of what to do next if you're hearing the call of God and you want to know how to answer it. So for your reflection this time, we're going to ask you to look at these particular questions. First of all, what is the difference between a deacon and a priest? What is the difference between a diocesan priest and a religious order priest? How does a person know that he or she might have a calling from God to serve the church? And then, if you would, write a sentence or two of words of encouragement to Michael Stabile, and I'll make sure that they get delivered to him so that he knows that we're supporting his vocation as Holy Apostles' very first seminarian who may be a priest someday. So, thank you for your attention, and we'll see you soon. God bless you.